And we're going through. Scotty's showing us the Gabba, and we go into one of the rooms, and there was stuff on the blackboard, and it was Brisbane's game plan. And there was various stuff up there, and Scotty went through it with me, and he turned to the others who had come from my work and said, "Oh, sorry about that. That was probably a bit complicated. That was just for Malcolm." And let's just say one of the people who was with him did rate himself in my work.
Yes.
Back then. One of the others was punching the air that how good it was to have shoved it up this other guy. So even though Scotty wasn't trying that whatsoever, geez, you did me a big favour. It was a fun day, and there's a couple of us still piss ourselves laughing about that, Scotty.
The trip home would have been good.
You're welcome.
Yes, it was good. And it was quite in depth what you went through, and I'm going, so who's the roamer there? Who's the blocker there? And the others are sort of looking, well, how do you know the terms? I'm going, well, I might have read an AFL playbook at some stage. And yes, because there may have been a couple of Bassett terms up on that board. So, yes, I may have known them pretty well. So, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So how do you work in now with Fags, obviously, with the AFL team and the development side and the NEFL team? How do you sort of work that through, because you want to try and give these youngsters as much opportunity as possible?
Yeah, so essentially I'm responsible for the 1 to 4 year players. So, when they get drafted and to their, I guess, 4th year, they're pretty much under my banner. And we have a formal curriculum that we run through with them, just sort of meetings and topics and things. And they're all, things that primarily my role is how we can get them to play better, and that's the things that skill-wise that they do on field, but also the habits and professionalism and preparation and all those sorts of things that can help them on field as well. There's not as much there used to be a little bit more crossover in terms of player welfare and nutrition and things like that. But
that's right. I do remember the nutrition part with you. Yeah.
Yeah, but we've got experts in that space now. So, my main role is, how can we get them to be better footballers and prepare better and, sort of fast track. I don't necessarily like using the term fast track, but how do we get them up to speed as quick as possible to have an impact at AFL level? So.
Well, that became even more of a big thing this year, though, Scotty, where you guys were going down like 9 pens with almost having a competition amongst themselves who could do an ACL and that, where you lost 5 guys with ACL. So someone like Morris comes through, as a first year player and was a vital part of your flag in the end. So that sort of thing would have given you a fair bit of pleasure as well, Scotty.
Yeah, I guess in my role, I'm not as heavily involved in the strategy side of things. But when a young player comes in and plays, contributes at AFL level and has an impact, that's where I get my pleasure and my joy. Kai Lohman's one that, he had a great year and a great finals campaign, but for 2 years that in the background, he's going through highs and lows and ups and downs. And, I was experiencing them with him and working through those things with him, but to then see him do what he did this year and get the opportunity to be a premiership player, I mean, that's what I get my kicks out of now.
And of course, I hope you claim that, Brisbane come into play at the home of football this year and your influence there, that got Brisbane back on track. And actually, in all seriousness, it was good. Caught up with you, mum and dad, as you know, that trip. And
you sold a book, yeah?
Yeah, you walked out and you immediately went, I knew, good to see you've got my dad for a book and that sort of thing. Yeah, so, yeah.
That's right.
What's it like playing the gather round? And obviously, I think the first year you were up at Mount Barker, and then this year you're at Norwood Oval, or the home of football, as Malcolm called it.
Yeah. Well, like the year before, I didn't actually go on the trip because the VFL, there was a clash with the VFL. Whereas this year, I do have an AFL match day role as well, which is basically in the box and connecting players to coaches, and essentially it's a glorified phone operator. But so this was the first time I got to go to the gather round, and it was and I obviously made the most of the trip. I think it was at the trip where Zor's got in the Hall of Fame, maybe.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, so I got to catch up with him and a few of those guys, and see a Norwood game as well. So, but in terms of the city and the actual gather round itself, they do it really
Huge,
well,
isn't
don't
it?
they?
It's fantastic.
It's yeah, it was a real buzz. Everyone's just talking about footy, and there's colours everywhere of different teams. So no, it was a great experience. So
Now
but
I've had a question for you while we've been doing this from one of our regular listeners, Jake Bushell. He's from South Warrnambool, so he's always questions do revolve around his upbringing. Ask him
Yep.
about Hugh McCluggage from South Warrnambool. See if he thinks Hugh can go to another level. Also ask him about Drakey and the work he does behind the scenes. Drakey played at South Warrnambool in sales roles at the Lions and Andrew Island's son-in-law. And, of course, there's a South Warrnambool flavour at the Lions with John O'Brien originally and Brent Maloney. So, yeah, that's from Jake.
There you
so
go.
there you are, mate.
Yeah, and did South win the flag this year with
I think so.
Hugh's brother, Miles plays for South Warrnambool, but yeah, Huey's obviously a star, and
Yeah.
I think he can still even go to another level, but he's such a consistent performer and so skillful, and he's a really hard worker as well, and such a humble guy. So Huey, yeah, he's a ripper for us, so important for us, and he's one of the ones that's signed one of those long-term, 6 or 7 year contracts or whatever they do. And Drakey, who he mentioned, is a really good mate of mine. He was my academy assistant coach early days, and he's still involved in the club. And who else do you say? John O'Brien we see occasionally as well. So there's obviously a few. It does seem to be the people from South Warrnambool, and I know Hugh McClugg's parents as well. They're quality people, so I'm sure. I forgot the name of who you mentioned text through, but I'm sure he's
you heard Jake Bushell.
Yep. I'm sure he's a quality person from South Warrnambool as well.
Now, Scotty, there were rumours around this year that Adelaide approached you. Was there anything in that?
That's pointy.
Related question.
You know me well enough, Scotty.
Yeah. Different times I've spoken to both clubs in Adelaide around the possibility of coming home, and if you ask my parents or my mum in particular, she's super keen on that to happen.
Your mum is very keen on that, Scotty. Yes.
Yeah, it just sort of hasn't been the right timing in terms of like contract wise and all that sort of stuff. So I'm only 1 year down in another 3-year contract. So it's just sort of hasn't really lined up to this point. I'm not ruling it out ever. There's part of me that would love to work at Adelaide or Port and back home and get involved in that. But
your family's pretty settled up in Brisbane, aren't they? In terms of
well, yeah, I'm relatively settled.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, a few things have shifted in that space.
Okay. Sorry.
No, it's all good, mate. So yeah, no, it's all. But in terms of the club and also the lifestyle of Brisbane, it's sort of hard to leave.
Well, let's face it, if you've got a little bit of a sore knee, the warmer weather's not exactly going to hurt that.
Yeah, that's true.
It's funny you say that. Hodgie, when he first came up from Melbourne, he got a few more years out of his career because of the warm weather. So it's certainly a factor.
In terms of this year was a bizarre final series with Brisbane. Like you're 7 goals down against GWS. Like you would have been sort of thing. You come back to win that, and then come grand final day. Even though it was close at quarter time, I thought you guys were just so much in control of the game. And within 10 minutes of the second quarter, it was game over.
Yeah.
It was crazy feeling. And how did that feel? I know as coaches, you never relax and all that, but deep down, you still would have known, hey, we've won this pretty early from a fair way out.
Yeah. It was. You mentioned the whole final series, and we had a close game against Geelong as well. We were, I think, 23 points down in the prelim, and We seem to go well when the shackles are off a little bit. Early in the year when the pressure was on and there's expectation, we probably didn't handle it that well, and that's when we probably struggled. So, but come grand final day, the boys were just they were just on. I think so. I think at half time we were 40 odd points up, and my mind was drifting. It was thinking, I think we're pretty home, but we came back from that far down against the Giants, so we thought it would be, it's always possible. But then at 3/4 time, I think we were 50 odd points up, maybe. And then and no one's sort of saying anything, but there's that little feel of we're pretty much home. But then in the last quarter, in the coach's box, there was a few coaches that were saying talking to players on the bench and just saying, "Oh, have a rest, mate. How do you feel? You're a premiership player," and that sort of made us start to enjoy it a bit more. And then with 5 minutes to go, we went down to the bench, and that's there was all the hugs and high fives and all that's going on as there's still 5 minutes to go. And in that period, that was when Joey Danaher kicked that goal as well. And
you could tell erupted. At that time,
So it was all, it was, the boys were just clinical in that performance, and they were on, and Sydney were just a bit off, obviously. And even you never can read too much into pre-game. It never relates, but they look pretty tense pre-game, and our boys look pretty relaxed. And I remember just thinking that at the time, and sure enough, they probably played a bit tense, the Swans. Yeah.
Did you have a sense that Joey Danaher might pull the pin, or was this all sort of out of left field?
It didn't surprise me, but I was caught off guard with it. I didn't actually think that he was going to retire this year.
How about when he kicked the goal though? Did it enter your head then? Because the rumor had got around in the previous couple of days, and the way the players reacted, and like even Andrews ran down there from deep in defence. I thought, hey, hang on,
Yeah. Well, actually, I think the story sort of might have broke the Thursday or Friday.
Yes, Thursday.
Right. And I was just talking to our footy manager as well. I said, "What's going on with this Joey stuff?" And he goes, "Oh, mate, it's real." So I sort of pre-game probably pretty much knew that it was going to happen, but I guess leading into it, I was when the rumor first sort of started, I was like, "Oh, that can't be real, can it?"
Yeah.
But that's just Joey. He's just puts whatever, probably 800 grand or $1 million doesn't bother him as much as his happiness, and clearly he's got other things that he wants to do in his life. So he'll go off to Ocean Shores, which is New South Wales, which is where he was driving up from every
bizarre.
day.
Quite crazy.
Yeah, and then he'll go to Ocean Shores, and we'll hopefully see him again, but we might not.
Hey, too, we've got I nearly let Scotty escape. There is one aspect to stir him up as a role at AFL. Tell us about the day when you did your hammy as a runner, Scotty. You knew I wouldn't let you escape, mate.
Yeah, so I'd never done a hammy before, actually. So I remember, we were playing against Carlton at the Gabba, and I ran a message to Harris Andrews, and then turned to go back to the bench and slipped and just sort of my hamstring just grabbed, and basically ran to the bench. And because it was the first time I've done a hammy, this is really bad. I remember head of high performance speaking to David Noble on the headset saying, "Oh, Scotty's done his hammy," and Noble was like, Who's done their hammy? Like thinking a player's done a hammy or something like that. And then basically Mitch Hahn, who was up in the stats box eating a pie and having a Coke, he got told he had to come down and swap over with me in the race. We basically dacked myself and chucked the shorts on him. And so the first time I did a hammy, and the other times I've done hammies since, I've been playing this LMS cricket with Luke Hodge and Cameron Bruce and Grant Birchall and a few others. Tried to run a quick single, and I did another hammy. So
the end of sprinting, Scotty.
Falling apart.
No. Mate, obviously your role with the development players is going to be crucial, but not only do you have one Ashcroft, it looks like it's pretty much well guaranteed you're going to have two of them.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting for you.
It is pretty exciting, yeah.
Yeah, it's there's no reason why now, for another couple of years we can't be really competitive. So and Levi came up as a 16-year-old and trained with us, and his hands in close, his decision making at that stage, it was like, geez, this guy's next level, and then we've already got Will. So he's going to be a great addition. And there's also another academy lad, Sam Marshall, who's had a really good year as well. So all our draft will be around getting those two guys in. I think the recruiters or the list manager just worked on getting a heap of points to try and manage that. And we've had a couple of guys that have been squeezed out, unfortunately, like Jackson Pryor was only let go a couple of days ago from our list, who's a really good player, but it's just the nature of our list at the moment.
Yep.
Yeah, but the good thing is there's a lot of guys, and Rainer the other day signed for another 6, but the guys that are the real core group are sticking around for the long term because they love the environment, they love the club, and they want to have success for a number of years.
And I reckon, okay, losing Danaher's huge, but the fact that you're suddenly going to have Coleman, Duday, McCarthy, all desperate to get a game and desperate to be part of it, are going to drive your group. A little bit similar to what happened at the Crows in '98 with Rashudo and Vardy. And I reckon those guys and getting Ashcroft, and like, let's face it, Will Ashcroft, for a guy coming back from an ACL, most guys normally that first year, as you know, Scotty, are sort of adjusting back again, and he was just seamless and just kept improving each game, and just incredible, really. And he was probably the guy who got you back into the game against GWS.
Yep.
Yeah, he did. And even, we talk about professionalism. He's a next level. He's one that I don't have to worry about too much at all in that regard. He could almost teach it, basically, because obviously Marcus,
so good,
his old man, was the same. He was unreal when he came back in and just got better each week. And like you said, he almost single-handedly got us over the line against the Giants. Apparently, he said to Cam Bruce, the midfield coach, in that game, he said, "I'm feeling it, get me in there." So it's the rest is history in that regard.
Yeah.
I was going to ask what your input was with that there. Obviously, young player doing such a injury at such a young age and then making the transition back, like we said a minute ago, seamlessly. Is that something that you had to help him through that difficult period? Because it can be a bit lonely when you do a knee.
Yeah, well, he was probably lucky in a way that they did have the small group of guys to work together in the end. But we tried to get him involved as much as we could in terms of coaching opportunities and helping other players as well, just to give him different experiences, just to keep him busy. But he was one, again, that, he didn't need a lot of guidance in a lot of those areas because he was just so driven. He's just brilliant at it. And even so Tom Duday, he was basically at different times this year an assistant coach for us in the VFL. So we try different ways, and it's not, a one-size-fits-all thing. It basically, depending on their interests, we try and keep them involved in different ways, and try and basically get them involved. Because, as you said, the rehab group, it can be a lonely place.
Yeah, and Tom Doday's a quality person.
That's right.
A lot of work with Bedford and a lot of stuff around here.
Yeah.
You knew you were getting a quality person as well.
Yeah.
And
He's a ripper.
Now, speaking of players, mate, you probably would have been watching from afar Benny Keys. You did mention him a little bit earlier. What are your thoughts on a young Benny Keys, and then obviously this year probably having one of the best years ever?
Yeah, well, I couldn't be more proud of Keysy because, as I mentioned, going through the academy, he was one that was a little bit scrappy in terms of ball in hand, but in terms of work rate and desire to get better and all those other qualities that, sometimes those sorts of guys, they'll find a way. And I'm so pleased that he has done what he's done at Adelaide. Obviously at Brisbane, he got let go, and I used to cop flack because I'd obviously coach him in the academy, and then coaching in the senior program used to sort of, I guess, stick up for him at times and push his case at times, and even to the point, where the coaches would call me Scotty Keys and call him Benny Borlace and things like that. But and that's just the way it goes in terms of those the players you work with. You do develop really strong relationships with them, and you care about them. And when he got let go, I was so pleased he got another opportunity, and then now I'm just wrapped with what he's doing.
Okay, Scotty. So in terms of, we always do this, the traditional last couple of questions.
Yep.
So you got to name, and you can go in any direction you like and name as many as you like,
Yep.
whatever. Best players you played with and hardest ever opponents, mate.
Oof. Geez, I played with so many good players. It's hard to go past 98 playing with Macca. He's obviously one of the greats of all time. I'd like to say a number of my mates, Gags and those boys, but in terms of absolute superstar, Macca was the one.
Yep.
Hardest opponent.
You can name more than one.
Yeah, okay. I always had really good battles with Paul Thomas. And to the point where I used to fight him a lot. And I really like him as a guy, but
yeah, no, he's a good bloke.
It's funny.
Geez, I rate him as a coach.
Yeah, he's obviously doing good things at Centrals as well. So, but yeah, he was one I always had battles with. There's a lot of, obviously that era, the Centrals, those guys, the Gowanses and all that were pests. Again, ripping blokes off field, but on field they were certainly tough opponents. I used to get tagged a little bit by a guy that went to my school as well, Matty Krieg. So
yep.
I don't know if you remember him at North Adelaide. Because he was a good runner, he used to make it hard for me.
We might, to get you out on this one, we're going to give you one last question, and this is a new question to the podcast. If there's one player you would have loved to have played with, who would it have been?
Oh, wow.
I don't mind that.
That's a good question. Catching me off guard.
No, that's okay.
I think in terms of anywhere.
Anywhere, anytime.
I think Vossi.
Yeah.
I think Vossi would be a good one. In terms of just someone who just picks you up and carries the team and
jump
just
aboard,
the way it goes about it.
Yep.
Yeah. I think he'd be one that probably immediately comes to mind.
Hey,
and it wasn't that immediate to come to mind, but yeah, that's probably
no, that's fair. More than fair.
Probably got a young Ashcroft that's looking to do that along with Lockie Neal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Hey, Scotty, greatly appreciated, mate. Look forward to catching up. Hopefully catch up and gather around again, mate, and that side of things. And, great to have you on board. And, I'll send that through when it goes up and all along those lines. Thanks, Borlace. Thanks, mate.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Scotty, mate.
Cheers.
Liking this podcast? Please like, rate, and subscribe.